Hello all, welcome back to Garden Obsessed. I made a video last year where I went over the tomatoes that I was planning to grow for the 2021 garden season, and I'm going to repeat that video for the 2022 season, but I'm also going to make some additions. So the first addition that I'm going to make is peppers. So today I wanted to talk about the peppers that I'm growing in 2021. Or 2022, sorry. It's still January. I haven't corrected my words yet. So I have my pepper notes here all ready to go. I've got them divided into the sweet peppers that I'm gonna grow and the hot peppers that I'm gonna grow. I think altogether there's about 15 peppers or so. I might change some of these. I'm pretty confident that most of these I'm gonna grow. I think the tomato list this year is a little more up in the air right now, but I thought I would start with the peppers because those are the first of the garden, like the edible garden that I'll be starting inside. So it's still early. It's mid-January today, so I won't even start thinking about starting peppers for another month or so, probably towards the end of February, but sometimes I get antsy and start them earlier. The hot peppers I will start probably a week or two before the sweet peppers. I find them a little slower, but let's start talking about what I'm gonna grow. So we will start with maybe the sweet peppers. So the first sweet pepper that I'm gonna grow this year is a new one to me. I've never tried growing it. I received some seeds in a swap, I think it was last year, and they are called Violet Sparkle. I think they're similar to a bell, though they're not quite bell shaped. And they start kind of a chartreuse and then turn purple and red. I wanted to grow these because I want to try, and it may not work because they may have green flesh. A lot of the colored peppers are actually like just a green bell pepper or red when they're ripe on the inside. So I don't know if this will work or not, but I wanted to try to make hot pepper jelly that was kind of pink or purple. So I thought I would use these peppers. The recipe that I use, you use 3 or 4 sweet peppers and then a couple of hot peppers to get your heat. So I thought I would try using these with the peppers that I talked about in the single seed challenge video that I just put out a week ago, which is a FIDALGO ROXA pepper, and it's kind of a peachy pink color with purple shoulders. So I thought together that those might make a really pretty hot pepper jelly, but you know, when I grow it and if it's green, then I'll have to come up with a plan B. But that's the first one on the sweet pepper list. The next one is Ajvarski, which I have grown before. It's a thick fleshed roasting pepper. It's really good. It originates in Macedonia, for anyone that's interested. The next one is, I'm not sure how to say it, if it's L-E-S-Y-A, Lesia. I'll try to find some pictures online and throw up the names here as I go through these as well. So it's said to be the sweetest of all peppers. I've never grown it before. I've heard really good things about it. Everyone that seems to grow it once, it goes on their must grow list. So I'm really excited about it. It's said to be high yielding. It's heart shaped. It originates in the Ukraine and surprisingly only in the early 2000s. It's a relatively new open pollinated variety, so that's interesting. It has thick, juicy flesh and is said to be good for fresh, roasting, pickling, and stuffing. So good all-round pepper. The next one is a banana pepper, and I suppose I could have included this on the spicy pepper list. It has Scoville units associated with it, but it's only between 100 and 500. So that's much milder than even like a jalapeno pepper. I'm growing these, you know, they're banana peppers. I've grown them in the past. I haven't grown them for a few years, but I have always found them to be quite prolific, and I want to do a lot more pickled peppers this year, and this is one of the ones that I'm planning to pickle. The next one is a black pepper, which I received from the swap this year, and I'm very excited to grow it. It is said to be thick-walled and crunchy, like a really nice eating pepper, raw or cooked. It comes from Eastern Europe, close to Russia. It is named the black pepper because it has patches of orange and red on the side of the pepper, and I believe it's a bell as well. So that will be interesting. The next pepper is one of the it is the standard bell pepper that I grow. It's King of the North, so you can use it as a green pepper or let it ripen to red. It is, where I live, it's difficult to get large bell peppers to ripen before the end of the season, before we start to cool off and have less daylight hours and we, you know, start to get frost concerns. So King of the North is one that was developed for cooler regions and is earlier ripening than a lot of the standard bell peppers. So I've grown it for 2 or 3 years now, and it has become one of the ones that I find quite reliable. And it's also quite prolific. Like I find that here, pepper plants don't get as large and productive as they do somewhere in the south where they get more heat and a longer growing season. So for me to get 3 or 4 bell peppers per plant from this is actually quite good where I live. So this is a standard that will be in my garden every year until or unless I ever find one that is better. But so far this is it. The next pepper is Jimmy Nardello, which is a long, thin-walled pepper. It's also a good frying and roasting pepper. We use it for a lot of things. It's super productive. It's also another pepper that I can rely on ripening to red here. And I'm planning on growing quite a few of them this year because I want to do more preserving this year. And it is one that I have found freezes quite well because it's thin-walled and it's a drier pepper. And it works very well if I cut it into strips and freeze it, that I can use in stir fries and fajitas and tacos and things like that throughout the winter. So I'm going to grow a lot of this purely so I can, I mean, I'm sure we'll eat some fresh as well, but the goal is to freeze them for winter eating. And the last sweet pepper that I have on my list is a hybrid. So far all of these peppers, to my knowledge, are all open pollinated. But the Carmen pepper is a hybrid pepper. It's also early maturing and one that is grown a lot in northern regions. It is able to also, it was developed to set fruit in cooler conditions. So I'll be able to get it planted out earlier after frost still, but it theoretically shouldn't take as long to get going as some of the other peppers. It doesn't require as much heat. It's also sweet and heavy yielding. I have grown it once in the past. It was a plant start that I picked up at the farmer's market, and after growing it that year I was like, this is one I want to try from seed myself. So that is how it has gotten onto the list. It's also said to be a good fresh and roasting pepper. So now, on to the spicy peppers. So I have a Hungarian mixed package that I received in a seed swap last year, I believe. It has Hungarian black and Hungarian yellow peppers. They have quite the range of Scoville units. I can't remember if it's, I think the black is spicier than the yellow, but I can't quite recall. The Scovilles are said to be between 1,000 and 15,000. For reference, jalapenos are typically between 2,500 and 8,000, so it's got a wider range, so it could potentially be hotter than a jalapeno. And they look like, I think everyone's probably fairly familiar with like Hungarian peppers. They look similar to a banana pepper, but a spicy version. The difference being the black Hungarian obviously isn't yellow. It ripens to a very dark greenish purple, which basically looks black, and hence Hungarian black. And then I think it will also continue ripening to red if you leave it long enough. The next pepper that I'm growing is a hybrid, and I'm growing it from seeds that I saved. It is a basket of fire pepper, which is a hybrid that was developed, I believe, for hanging baskets, like as an ornamental. And again, I purchased it from a garden center as a start probably 5 years ago or so now, and saved seeds from those peppers. And so far, they have all grown fairly true to what the original plant was. One of these days I might get a surprise, but I've grown it, I think, pretty much every year. I didn't grow it last year, but I've grown it multiple years since. It's essentially a very small ornamental pepper that has multicolored, like 1 or 2 inch chili peppers. So they're yellow, orange, and red, and sometimes a tinge of purple to some of them. And you'll have multiple colors on the plant at once. So it is really pretty, and I probably will grow it in containers. It will be one that I'll be able to bring in and out longer in the season and get a lot of the little peppers saved, because I want to dry those and make my own hot pepper flakes this year. I did that a few years ago with these, and they pack quite a punch, and a little goes a long way. So I'll probably only plant a couple at most. The next pepper, I have 2 kinds of jalapenos. So the first is an early jalapeno. It was adapted for cooler climates again. They're smaller than a standard size jalapeno. They're probably at most 2 to 3 inches. And they are quite prolific plants as well. They also have a shorter days to maturity, around 65 days. I'm also going to grow Craig's Grand jalapeno. Mostly the early jalapenos. I want to grow a lot of jalapenos this year because every year I make cowboy candy. And we are on our second to last jar, and it's January. So I want to make a lot more next year. So there's going to be more jalapenos. And those early ones I can rely on to have an abundant harvest. The Craig's Grand jalapeno, I want to make some jalapeno poppers and freeze those. So they're a larger jalapeno. They're 4.5 inches. But they are a longer days to maturity. They're like more in the 80-day range. So less reliable for me here. I have tried to grow them in the past, and I have certainly gotten peppers off of them, but not as productive and prolifically as the early jalapeno. So I'm going to be growing both of those. We'll also be using those in salsa. We make salsa every year, and quite a bit, and jalapenos are an essential component for that too. So, as are some of the bell peppers that we previously talked about. So the next one is a hot red chili. I grew it last year. This is not so much about the taste, but the look of the plant. I mean, it's a chili pepper, and it's spicy, and you can add it to things. But it is a variegated plant with variegated fruits. So it is a hybrid. It was pretty prolific too. The peppers were about the size of a jalapeno and similarly shaped. If you're familiar with a fish pepper, it's very similar in coloring and size to that. It's just that the fruit shape is different, more shaped like a jalapeno, less like a fish pepper. The next one, actually, those have a Scoville of about 10,000 to 12,000, just for reference. So a little spicier than a jalapeno. The last spicy pepper that I wanted to talk about was shishito peppers. So these are really popular for like frying or roasting, or you can also make a tempura and use them as a tempura pepper. They are not very spicy. They are between 100 and 1,000 Scovilles. So much milder than a jalapeno. And we will eat, these will mostly be like a fresh eating pepper. So I'll probably maybe grow 3 or 4 plants, and that'll be plenty for us. There is one more. It's the one that I chose for the single seed challenge, and that's the FIDALGO ROXA pepper. So I won't go over it again. If you want to know all about it, you can go watch that video that I did introducing the single seed challenge and talking all about just this pepper. And that is the peppers that I'm growing in 2022. One more thing that I am going to throw in, because I will be starting it when I start my peppers, is eggplant. So I'm going to grow Black Beauty. It's kind of your standard looking, standard sized eggplant that you would find in the grocery store. I have grown it and several others in the past. I grew one that I forget, I think it was called CARMEN, and it had like small green eggplants. I've also grown Patio Baby. Those are both hybrids. I've also grown a lot of the long narrow eggplants, which generally I find to be much more productive and prolific for me. So this is another attempt at, you know, the standard size. I think it's just, you know, trying to grow eggplant in a northern garden is just trickier than if you're somewhere southern. I am going to start them earlier. Typically I've started them much later, not with my peppers, but I'm gonna give them a really good chance to establish and see, just give one more try. And if this year doesn't work out, then maybe eggplants are just not meant to be grown in my garden, and that's okay. So that is the end of this peppers for 2022 plus an eggplant. I would love to know what you guys are growing. Leave a note in the comments. I love hearing what everyone else is growing. If you have experience growing any of these peppers, or if you have eggplant advice, I'm also willing to take that. Peppers are one of my favorite things to grow. There's endless possibilities and varieties, and believe it or not, this was me trying to rein it in this year. I could have chosen a lot more, and I'm a little sad that, you know, 15 or so is what it is the list this year. But like I said, I'm trying to focus on things that I can preserve and have for winter next year. So have a little less fun this year so we can have a little longer eating season next winter. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.